Welcome to The Life of Hair. My name's James Atkinson. Thank you for joining me in this week's episode. Now, in this week's episode, we've got another barbering episode for you. A few weeks ago, I posted one and I asked everybody whether you are interested in my barbering videos or not. And lots of people came around and said that they loved the barbering videos and they'd like to see more of them down in the comment section. So for those of you that have enjoyed the barbering videos, here you go. Here's another one for you to enjoy. Now, in this week's episode, we're looking at fading very curly textured hair. Some of you might know it as Afro-Caribbean hair. I'm not such a big fan of that, having been educated by one of my viewers about their feelings on Afro-Caribbean hair. So thank you for that, Pimp My Ride. So we're going to call it curly textured hair from now on whenever we talk about what we'd always known as Afro-Caribbean hair. And here's the thing really, and this is really, you know, my true and honest belief in this particular scenario is that as hairdressers, we should be able to tackle all hair types, whether that be super curly Afro hair or straight Caucasian hair. It shouldn't really matter. Now, why does it matter? Well, it's because it's a separate skill. I appreciate that entirely. Lots of chemical straightening, lots of different things going on with Afro-Caribbean hair. We aren't taught it at college unless we choose to go in and learn about it. So there are some factors within the hairdressing industry that separate Afro hair and Caucasian hair, unfortunately. And I don't think for one second that either of those two things should be separated. We should be able to do Afro hair or textured hair in the salon. Very easy, very straightforward. We do need to allow a little bit more time, especially when we're getting used to these hair textures, because we do have to cut them differently because they expand and shrink very quickly. And in this video today, I'm going to show you how to fade textured hair, and I'm going to show you how to cut the top of textured hair, blend it into the sides, and what will happen to the shape because it expands and shrinks in a completely different fashion. So I hope you're going to take some really useful tips away from this. There's some cracking barbering tips, but beyond that, there is some really useful things about dealing with very curly hair textures in this video. So look, if you'd like to know more about my take on doing curly hair textures, then definitely let me know. I just really wanted to say I hope everybody is really well out there and looking after themselves. But we're going to get on with today's video. Thank you for listening to me. And if you enjoy anything from today's video, share it with your friends, subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and chat to me down in the comments. I love to hear from you guys that chat to me every single week. It means the world to me that you go to the effort to put those comments down there. And I just wanted to say a massive thank you to all the new Patreons that have joined in this last week. I am up to 49 Patreons. Don't forget, the first 100 Patreons will get a lifetime access to the Life of Hair Digital Academy when I have that set up and running. It won't be this year now because of everything that's been pushed back with the COVID-19 crisis, purely based on the fact that I can't orchestrate doing live models very well at the moment. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you to everybody who watches the channel. I truly mean that from the bottom of my heart. Have a wonderful week, and I shall see you all next time for another episode of The Life of Hair. So the first thing we're going to do is subdivide the top from the bottom. Now, the main reason that we are going to do this is because David's hair is extremely long on top, because he doesn't always have the top cut every time he has the sides trimmed. So we have got a lot more hair to play with on top this time. Now, today is all about cutting the whole thing, which we do every 8 weeks or so. The first thing I'm going to do is a light scissor over comb on the longer hair that is just above the fade. This is to reduce the amount of bulk that I'm going to then clipper into. When you've got a lot of hair above where you're going to clipper, it's very difficult sometimes to judge where to pull the clipper out. I'll explain more in just a second. But for me, if we slim down or remove the weight of the top of the section that we are aiming to clipper, we do save ourselves a lot of aggravation when it comes to blending with the clippers. Anybody that's used a set of clippers will know how frustrating it can be to try and get a long guard through a lot of hair. The next thing I'm going to do is go in with my clippers. I'm using a 1.5, so I've got a 1 grade on, and I've turned the lever on the side of the clippers to set it to a 0.5. I'm then going to take that half off, as you just saw, and I've now got a number 1. I'm using the C motion that I mentioned in my previous videos, but on a micro scale. You can see the clippers just gently oscillating up and down, and I am focusing hard on removing any lines that I may create by working down the grades. Working down the grades is a fantastic way to ensure that you are continuously blending as you go. I'm now working on a closed naked blade, a 0, taking away some of the extra little lines and skin fading right down. I now have the clippers on a 1 grade, and I'm going back into the longer hair to remove some of the bulk from in this back occipital bone area, just above the mastoid process, which is the bone behind the ear. It's really important that we focus on removing the bulk before we move on. And you will note I've really just focused on the side of the head and managed to get that blended really nicely before I've moved on to this back section. Doing exactly the same principles I did through the side, removing some of the bulk from further up the hair first, then going back in with my 1.5 into my 1, as you just saw me move the lever on the side of the clipper. I will then remove the grade in a second when I'm happy with my blend. I will then go in with my 1/2, which is the lever with no guard lifted straight up towards me. This is really, really important to be able to work with the lever like this. It saves you a lot of time, energy and effort changing guards. It also gives you a more seamless blend throughout. I have met many hairdressers in my career who are scared of using clippers, especially with no guard on them. But it's like anything in life, it's just practice. And once you understand it, it's actually incredibly straightforward. So find your friends that have got hair that they don't mind if you make a little mistake, and go for gold. Practice is king. You can see now I'm using a gentle clipper over comb technique where I'm removing weight from the area just above the occipital bone where I've blended up to. This is incredibly important for your blend to utilize the bones in the head structure, the occipital bone in the back and the parietal ridge in the side just above the ear, where the head starts to round towards the crest or the highest point. We have completed the sides and the back as far as doing the fade on the right hand side and the back center back. We are now going to repeat that process exactly the same on the opposite side, but this time I'm going to use the clippers instead of scissors to take away the bulk. And you will note I have left my 1 grade on my clippers. This is a fantastic way, if you're not confident at clipper over comb, to get some practice in. Leave the 1 grade on, set the lever on the side so that you have got a full number 1, and then work your weight away with your clippers and your comb. It is a very fast and effective way of removing weight, and one that I highly recommend to gain confidence with freehand clipper over comb techniques. Once you're fully competent, you can remove the number 1 and then go with a naked blade or a 0, and you will be even faster. We're going back in now, we've taken off our grade, we're working with a 1/2 exactly as we did on the opposite side. We're working just to erase any lines that we have created during the process of blending from 1.5 to 1, down to 1/2, then onto a 0. For me, clippering is such a therapeutic thing to do these days, and I know way back in the day when I first learnt to clipper, it really was a nightmare job for me because I found it very difficult to take control of the clippers. But actually, with time, with practice, I really have come to enjoy using clippers. And when I say I struggled in the beginning, I struggled as a trainee barber, so I really had to get good quick, because otherwise I would have never have continued down this road as a hairdresser. So now I've just done my 1/2 grade, and I've decided I need to go back in with my number 1 to blend out any excess weight. This process of going in with 1.5, 1, half, then 0, then going back in and removing a little bit of weight is a vital part of getting these fades right. We are all too used to watching amazing barbers go in and just whack the hair off as if it's an absolute piece of cake. Now, yes, there are some extremely talented barbers out there who can just go in and make it look like a walk in the park. But in reality, when you're a hairdresser doing a mixture of skills, you will not necessarily be that proficient, especially on extremely curly hair types. So I recommend that you work slowly and methodically throughout the technique. We've now washed David's hair, because it is always best to clip it on dry hair because of the shrinkage when the hair is wet, especially on such curly hair types. We're now going to look at blending in the top. We're going to take a horizontal section that runs straight across his head from the front to the back. We're going to pull the hair down and we're going to cut a square line under plenty of tension. Because the hair is extremely curly, the hair will spring back into shape. So we need to create a more exaggerated shape on David's hair to make it look square through the sides, which is the optimum shape for David's head. This is generally the optimum shape for most men, to be perfectly frank, because of square jawlines that men tend to have. When we're thinking about face shapes and haircuts, it is a good idea that if the male features are very strong and square, that we mirror that through the haircut. This gives the haircut a sense and feeling of masculinity. Again, we take a horizontal section relative to where we're standing on the side of the head, and we pull the hair down, and with our guide visible through our section, we continue to cut a square line that is over directed to the first section. Every subsequent section is going to be over directed to that first point. Because of the nature of the fade on the side being so short, it is going to be extremely difficult for us to be able to cut through our fingers and get the blend and get it to blend through the sides. But I'm going to show you a really nifty trick a little bit later on to help you with that also. Using this over direction is so important to building up a nice shape on curly hair. When you're cutting curly hair, to try and cut it into the shape you want it to sit in is a bit of a mistake, I believe. You need to know how the hair will expand and shrink dependent on where you'll over direct it and how the hair might dry. I always say, with curly hair, cut more shape than you think you actually need. This, for me, is a vital tip for when you're creating curly hair shapes. Many times have I seen on curly hair where people have gone in and tried to cut it with the flow of the head shape as you would a short haircut, and soon found that the hair is way shorter than they were expecting it to be. So in this instance, using this over directing technique will actually give David's hair what will look like a very simple shape to create, but actually in reality, to create this on curly hair, you do need to use some clever over direction techniques, as you're seeing right here. With this bottom section of the head in the occipital bone area, we're simply going to over direct the hair all the way down to the centre back and cut a square line as we did in the sides. A super simple and easy technique to do, but creates wonderful shape without taking away tons and tons of hair. Onto the left hand side, we are going to do exactly the same thing as we did on the opposite side. Nothing changes. We take horizontal sections and pull the hair down to the very short hair that we blended into previously. Let me know down in the comment section who loves to cut curly hair. I would love to know what you think about curly hair. Do you enjoy cutting it? Is it something that scares you? Do you want to know more about curly hair? If you don't like curly hair, tell me why. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So that is the top trimmed up beautifully. Into the top section now, just taking horizontal sections, pulling the hair straight up, and because we over directed the hair to either side of the head, we will have created a high point right through the center top. I am simply just taking off 4 or 5 millimeters from that top, just to ensure that there is not an excessive high point through the center of the head. This is obviously totally personal taste, but something that we wanted to create for David, a slightly flatter top area to ensure that he didn't have a peak in the middle. The exact same thing is going to be done to the fringe area, where we're going to cut off that center point created from the over direction. I'm going to use some of my favorite new curl product from a brand called 11. It's called Keep My Curl. I really like this product. Not had it very long, but really enjoyed using it on all hair textures, especially my own actually. And then we're going to use a diffuser. It's really important to work the product in evenly and then just pat it into shape and then go in with the diffuser. Now I normally use a diffuser bag, but I've had this diffuser on trial and it's from a brand called Upgrade, and you can control the airflow by twisting the center column, the grey prongs that you see, so more or less air comes out. I'm enjoying it. There's a few recommendations that I have given them, but it's a really interesting diffuser. But diffuse low speed, high heat, you know, you don't want the hair to oscillate, and just use your fingers to keep a little bit of separation in the hair. You don't want it to go like a really solid shape. And there we have it, the finished result. A nice faded, super curly, textured haircut. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and you've got some tips and tricks to take back to the salons and use on your clients, friends, relatives, whoever you know with super curly hair, or anybody who wants a fade. That clippering technique in the beginning of this applies to absolutely any faded clipper cut, so definitely get your practice on. If it's something that scares you, just do it. Have a wonderful week. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all again next time for another episode of The Life of Hair.